Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nuke coming at you with another episode of Day Trading with Nuke. And this is your watch list for Tuesday, January 15th. And we're going to cover this one a little bit differently. And the reason we're going to cover it differently is there's a lot of the tickers that I'll be playing and keeping an eye on that have earnings reports coming out today. So we're going to go over the SPY first, and then we will go over that earnings play right there directly after. So let's get into it. So yesterday with the SPY, it had sold off pretty heavy in the morning pre-market, and then it caught its feet at around the 256, slowly started building up, and then it ramped up for the rest of the day. But the main thing is pre-market, it set the channel of the pre-market high, the pre-market low, and it hasn't gotten out of that channel. It's pretty much been the same pattern over and over and over lately. So what are we looking at today? It ramped up, and then it ratcheted down, ratcheted down, ratcheted down. But what's the pre-market range looking like? On the high side, 259.21, and you can see that is almost perfectly in line with the daily high of 2 days ago, and only slightly below the daily high of yesterday. And then the pre-market mid-range is at 258.21, which it's pretty solid. I mean, that's yesterday. Oh wow, I said that wrong. 3 days ago and 2 days ago. So it would have been Thursday, Friday, and then yesterday. And then yesterday's high during the day corresponds almost perfect with the today's pre-market mid-range. It's slightly off. We had a couple of candles that went right above it, but not by much. You see that? So when you look across to the pre-market low, which was set just after market close yesterday at 257, that corresponds nicely to back like last Tuesday, when we had this red doji right up in here. So we've got some good solid basing going on. I can't make any kind of guess at whether it's going to hold and go up or it's going to finally break down. We got a bunch of major players that have earnings calls today. We'll have to see that. So anyway, that's the major breakdown of it. And we're just going to go through them real quick. The earnings calls. And I'm going to be watching Apple, Baba, Netflix, NVDA, Facebook, JP Morgan, BAC. The reason I'm watching JP Morgan and BAC, it's not stocks I normally play, but I want to see how they react today with their earnings coming out. And then AMD, just because I always watch it. And PCG, they're filing bankruptcy. And a couple other ones have earnings. I think MJ actually has earnings today. And then CGC is a weed stock that's just been doing good. So for the weed stocks, for me, that's going to be ABC, CGC, MJ, NBEV. And the rest are just basically keeping my eyes on earnings plays. So we'll look at them real quick. And the reason we're not going to super focus on them, they can be dangerous, right? So I just want to be able to go through and show y'all what some of the levels look like and where we're at. So just pay attention to the levels. I'm not even going to read them to y'all. Just go through them on your own and look here. But decent pre-market action going in. A little bit of indecision. We're sitting there hovering around the midpoint of pre-markets. So it's kind of anyone's guess where it's going to actually break to, high, low. There's a lot of volume, but that volume's coming from big market money, so we don't know if they're going to go up or down right now. Just a lot of shuffling around. Netflix, let's take a look at that. See how Netflix looks. Netflix has been doing real good. Had a consolidation day yesterday. Maybe it's getting ready to pull back to the 9 since it's so far extended on the daily. What did this look like before the drop? Well, I guess there's no real pretty way of showing this, huh? You got to go back a little too far. But yeah, it's been having a hell of a growth. I think it's ready for a slight pullback, but we don't know what the earnings are going to look like yet. Alibaba's been doing great. I mean, it did have that big sell-off, but in the short term, it's been on a short-term rip here. So a little bit of gap down there yesterday, and it held it nicely. I don't know. This one, we got a lot of support right below it, so there's a chance this one could rip up, depending on how those earnings looks. Netflix, yeah, we had the big drop, but look how much of a recovery it's had. You know, don't be so quick to short it. I mean, just because it looks juicy because it's come up a bit doesn't mean it's ready to have that next leg down. Let's see, NVDA. NVIDIA has not had the same rebound effect as the others. And what you can see with NVIDIA once we zoom in is, yes, it's finally getting above that curve, but it is not above the 200 or the 50. So it's still got some more struggling to do. That being said, with this earnings call, we hear the news, but we don't hear all of it. Right? So this earnings call today is really going to give us a little truth about how people are feeling about the direction the company is going. Facebook, zip it down a little bit for you to see here. We'll look at the daily on the Facebook. Facebook's been strong, even though it's had that major, it came down with all the other tech stocks. It's kind of almost setting up for a double top here. And you have the 20 or the 9, the 20, and the 50 here. It's still sitting on the 50. Had a real strong day yesterday, but we'll have to wait and see what earnings looks like. JP Morgan and BAC, they're not doing so good pre-market with their earnings calls coming out. And you can see just their swings are a little more violent even, I think. It had a good day yesterday, but we're sitting in the middle of our support and our resistance is clearly overhead, so not as excited about it. Bank of America, probably looking like the same thing. Boop. I went too far. Let's do it like this. That's why we can see these candles here. So this is where we're at. I see this area as more resistance bound than supported, right? Because you have your 9 EMA right here. And yeah, there's good support. You've got your 20 not far below it, But resistance-wise, even right now, our pre-market low is sitting on that 50. So unless it gets some gasoline under it and wants to go somewhere, I see this resistance as being ready to push this thing back down. That's just my personal take. We'll see how it plays out. AMD, the devil darling, she just does what she wants to, right? So we'll look at the range, and if we look at it here on the daily, yeah, it had this big drop, but then really what you see a lot of is consolidating. It really didn't get too far low, and it hasn't come too far back up. But yesterday it had a decent day, and of all the stocks we've looked at so far, it's sitting on top of the 9, the 20, and the 200. But we're kind of stalling out right here. Our 50 is at the pre-market low. So in the 50% extension, it's a little bit off of there, right? So don't know. You just don't know like how much gusto these things have with earnings, because of most of us aren't in the know on all of the intricacies and study them in that detail. So we'll wait and we'll see how it goes. This thing could jump up like a jackrabbit and just run from this point on, or if the earnings don't meet the expectations, it could start to fall off. Let's look. CGC. These are all relatively new. Had a great day yesterday. And you can see how it's just been coming up, but we are extended a ways off of the 9. So we are getting into dangerous territory for a pullback. Let's see, what are some of the other ones? Tilray just selling off big time. It had ramped up. It had a smaller ramp up in the last few days. So I guess we could see this was coming. We might be on the backside of this ramp up and ready to come back down and find support. So where that support could be found is anywhere between $100 and more than likely $80. So if we came down and looked to it like this, that's the 100% extension to the downside. So not too crazy. Could very well hit that today. And then you've got super support down here at the 71. So not too risky playing Tilray today. Well, that's what I got. I don't want to go beating the bushes. Just be careful today with all the earnings coming out. It could really skewer the market and how people react, especially if big money makes any sizable moves today. So, all right, hit the feedback, hit the comments. Let me know what you think.